Hey yo, what is up everyone? It is the Alpha J Show, and this is Extra Discussions, a segment on the animation bonus block that is unscripted, with me basically going off of a list of points that I want to talk about for a particular show. Now, why exactly am I doing this particular episode, Yours, Mine, and Mine? It was my number one pick on the top 10 Spongebob episodes rewritten, and it's also my least favorite Spongebob episode of all time. And I just want to explain a little bit why, because that might be confusing to some people. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if I had the unpopular opinion on this episode being the worst of the entire series. Because all 10 of the ones that I had on that list just get thrown up into the air, and technically any of them can really be considered the worst. One course meal, I know a lot of people who probably think that's the worst. Then you have the card, and I won't even get into the ones I didn't do, like Demolition Doofus. But this episode is the one that I think marks a lot of problems in terms of the later seasons of SpongeBob. So let's get into it. So when the episode starts off, it starts off with SpongeBob being nice to Patrick. And I believe that is part of the fatal flaw in the episode, because this idea of them both fighting over a toy is not a bad idea at all. It's just that it's so one-sided that it kind of frustrates you as a viewer, at least in my humble opinion. The background characters also look very rushed, and considering that I don't like this episode, I can't help but make the comparison between the quality of the background characters and the quality of this plot. Seeing how if the background characters are bad and the plot is bad, I can only assume that this was a rushed, half-baked idea that really should have went through a few more drafts. Then we get the part where Patrick starts crying because he doesn't have any money to buy food, which is, I guess, a homage to Pat No Pay, or literally any other time where he orders food. But he seems so quick to stop crying, and he's just so eager to start manipulating SpongeBob. It makes it seem fake. It makes the whole crying scene fake because it's so quick. And when you start to think about it deeper, and how Patrick says things such as, you can't expect his usual brand of stupidity, he likes to mix it up and keep SpongeBob on his toes. What if it's not stupidity? What if it's literally his entire personality? Because maybe we aren't supposed to see Patrick like that, maybe he is like that. I mean, yeah, it is a kid's show and you can't blatantly say that, but the way that he was just so quick to stop crying, it just made it seem like he was just doing it because he knew that SpongeBob would help, because we all know SpongeBob likes to help. There was even an episode out there where SpongeBob got into trouble because he wanted to help everyone. Actually, there's multiple ones. There's the one where he tries to help Sandy with her science fair, and Patrick with his birthday, and all of them, and there's also the one where he had the flying pants. So we all know SpongeBob is super helpful, and he will help you until he can't. And he's just so forgiving in the beginning. And Patrick being so ungrateful and rude, it just doesn't bring this beginning of the story to make me want to see the ending. It just makes me groan every time I see it on the television. And maybe I'm just the only one on this, but if it's SpongeBob's money, then it's SpongeBob's toy, point blank. Maybe I'm just bringing real life morals into a cartoon, and I know you're not really supposed to do that a lot of times. You're supposed to use cartoon logic for cartoons, but this was just so realistic, and this was also my problem with Gone. They're both just so realistic. I can actually see this scenario happening in real life, and I'm talking about Yours, Mine, and Mine, where someone just doesn't get what they paid for, something that they earned. SpongeBob is working there day in and day out, and I just feel like I'm supposed to be laughing at the fact that he just stole his money and, quote, shared a toy that he didn't earn. Not only that, but it also brings the question, how does Patrick know that he's supposed to have a toy with his meal? To my knowledge, the only successful restaurant in town is the Krusty Krab, so how would he know about something like that? It's kind of like kids of today not knowing that there's toys in cereal boxes. They're not going to know until they actually experience it. And if Patrick never experienced it, how does he know that there's a toy in there? Another question I have is, what if SpongeBob denied anything at any point? What if SpongeBob didn't pay? What if SpongeBob didn't get the toy? What if SpongeBob didn't allow Patrick to keep the toy? What would Patrick have done if the crying didn't work? Would he resort to a more aggressive tactic? Would he get angry? Would he just walk away? Would he care? I don't know what he would do. And honestly, that's just something to think about when you think about this episode. And the reason I say that is because Patrick just seems a little bit more smart in this episode. He doesn't seem stupid. He seems like he has a higher intelligence. He knows that he can get away with this because Squidward doesn't care if Mr. Krabs is getting his money, and since he's not paying out of his pocket and SpongeBob's paying, and SpongeBob's so forgiving and he'll give you the shirt off his back if you really need it, it just makes Patrick seem so aware. And there's also this cruel kind of overlay that we are aware that this isn't fair. I don't have to bring it up with anybody, I guess, over the age of, let's say, maybe 10. I mean, if you watch this episode, you know that SpongeBob gets the bad end of it for majority of the episode. And the music is making it seem like this is a regular thing, like, oh, this is just Patrick being his normal self. And one of the things I realized is, what if the writers are not writing towards the show and they're actually writing towards their interpretation of the show, and this is how someone interprets Patrick, and that's not really right. And I understand that this is their job and they're trying to feed their families and everything, but their interpretation of the character doesn't matter. They're supposed to be writing to the show and how this character is interpreted according to the creator, according to how we see them, because if they don't, and this is the way that someone has seen Patrick, then that's probably a major reason to why this episode seems so out of place. Maybe this is why it's so infamous. SpongeBob still, after all this time, is being mature about it, and I really respect how SpongeBob acted, because this is exactly how he should have acted throughout the entire episode, and not on any level do I believe that SpongeBob sunk down to Patrick's level to get the toy. But I will give this episode the benefit of the doubt. Maybe I don't know how serious I'm supposed to take Patrick. Maybe this is just a lighthearted episode playing up and exaggerating Patrick, or maybe this is what I think it is, and it's a very realistic interpretation of how Patrick is in the later seasons. I don't know if it's an error or a mishap, but when they go back to their respective houses and Patrick plays the music stops when it becomes morning time, but when SpongeBob gets out of his house to confront Patrick, the music is back to playing again, which kind of doesn't make sense. Why not just have the music play throughout the night? Not only would it get the message across that he's been partying all night better, but it just seems kind of segmented. But you can clearly see that he's taking advantage of SpongeBob's niceness, and this is supposed to be a protagonist. This is supposed to be someone that we care about. They spent season after season building up Patrick to be this lovable goof. You know, he's not as smart, but he cares, and he cares about SpongeBob. And here's this episode basically doing a complete 180 on everything that we knew about him. And they're trying to make it cartoonish, and I see how they're doing it. The whole, you know, washing his hair, but he didn't think he were because he's bald, but he was actually washing his armpit hair, and the whole milkshake license. All of that is cartoonish, but this is exactly how this will happen in reality. If someone doesn't want to give you something that you rightfully own, they're going to do whatever it takes to keep it. And maybe that realistic overlay is the barrier between me liking this show and me thinking that this is the worst episode in the entire series. And I appreciate that SpongeBob is trying to make it cartoonish, but it just doesn't work because Patrick is so realistically just manipulative. And Patrick is the antagonist, but he still wins at the end. I also want to bring up the fact that Patrick says, "You're off my friends list, Gary," and the way that he says it, it makes Patrick seem so old because he doesn't even say it like how someone would say it regularly. He kind of says it like how your great uncle would tell you, or like your son or daughter when you have one, or if you already have one. He just says it in a way that makes him seem so old. Another thing that kind of infuriated me with this episode is when every time that Patrick says the word fair, the whole joke is that it wasn't fair, but I wouldn't laugh at something like this. And maybe I'm not supposed to take it seriously, but if I don't take it seriously and I'm supposed to laugh at this, then again, it's not funny. So either I'm taking this as a joke and not laughing at it, or I'm taking it seriously and having a serious discussion on it. And I don't know about you, but this actually seems like something I would like to discuss. SpongeBob bartering, all of that just seems so sad for the yellow sponge. He has to barter for the toy that he paid for, that he works for. And maybe some of you will be like, "Hey, Alpha J, you must be fun at parties." It's not so much that I'm looking at this in a serious light. I can look at things and joke about them. I can look at lighthearted things. I mean, look at Pickle and Peanut. A lot of people take that seriously, but I don't take it as seriously as many people do. And here I am taking this seriously. Why? Because this is realistic. Getting a pimple on your butt and having someone take the pimple, turn into a monster, that's not realistic. Having your arm break and then having someone climb up a water tower and shoot into pool acid, that's not realistic. Having cookies laced with LSD, oh, that's probably kind of realistic. But my point is, this is realistic, and I'm taking it seriously because it portrays realistic themes. This would be like the literal equivalent of if Patrick was doing a crime, which he kind of is here, but if Patrick was doing like a legitimate crime, but since it's a cartoon, you're not supposed to take it seriously. The crime still happened, right? So if the crime still happened, then making discussion on it really wouldn't hurt anybody. And for some reason, this episode is still laced with filler. We don't really need to see the entire fight sequence. It's merely just them rolling around. Maybe if they put effort into the fight sequence and have them somehow fight their way to the Krusty Krab, that would be one thing. But this is literally just them, like if they were in a side-load washing machine. The argument about SpongeBob lowering himself to Patrick's level, I just don't see it, and I don't agree with it. Just because he fought in the end does not mean that he lowered himself to Patrick's level. He took every precaution to make it seem like he wasn't going to go to that level yet. He did everything in his power to not make it physical, and he just had to. If you're dealing with this type of person, at some point, you have to do something serious. You have to do something drastic. And who is he gonna call? He's not gonna call the cops. What are they gonna do? It's not like Patrick's littering or anything, or Squidward is breathing. They're not gonna do anything. So he has to take matters into his own hands. And I know how the SpongeBob series is. Sometimes Patrick's really strong, and sometimes he's not. And I'm glad they didn't go for Patrick is way stronger than SpongeBob, because that could have taken this episode into a much darker level. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, comment below. I'm pretty sure someone will be able to explain it to you. I'm not even going to comment on the Squidward torturing because that's just a staple in a lot of bad SpongeBob episodes. So the icing on the cake, he says if he can't have it, then no one will. So let's say this was like a Game Boy or like the wind-up toy in the Waiting episode. Just something that's not food. And he just threw it on the ground and broke it. Like, doesn't that make you mad? Like, doesn't that make you not see this person as a good person? He doesn't even learn anything at the end. He doesn't want SpongeBob to have the toy, even though he was fully in the right to have it. And the fact that Mr. Krabs and Sandy didn't know the situation and they're trying to make it seem like this is an equal platform really takes me off. Sandy doesn't know anything about the situation and she's treating it as if both of them were fighting over the toy and they both had equal share on it. The same way that Mr. Krabs is saying you shouldn't let this toy get in between you guys. It's not the toy getting in between them, it's Patrick's manipulation getting in between SpongeBob and his tolerance. I mean, honestly, if Sandy and Mr. Krabs were there the entire time watching this entire situation unfold, I'm sure, unless the writers blatantly go the opposite route, that they would call Patrick out on what he's doing. It just seems like a cheap attempt to make the situation neutral when it's not neutral. It's not a neutral situation. You can clearly see the one-sidedness. And Krabs coming on top and saying it's a joke moral, it's not. It's really not. Not only that, but Patrick gets a toy in the end. That's really all he wanted. All he wanted was a toy. It didn't matter about the friendship. It doesn't matter about anything. A lot of shows have done this. Flapjack, and if you don't know the show, I'm pretty sure you can still relate to this plot. Knuckles decided to take candies over his quote-unquote apprentice, Flapjack. And that made Flapjack sad. But that was just how Knuckles is. This is not how Patrick is. There have been many episodes where they have gotten things and shared them. For example, the gum, they shared it. Patrick wanted it back. SpongeBob gave it back. The money, in the beginning they shared it, and it was SpongeBob who was at fault. There's many instances of them sharing things, and for some reason, just like in the Family Guy episode, they want to write this situation, but it just doesn't work like that. And when you understand how a character acts, you want to see them act like that in future episodes. That's basic character development, right? You would not want to see SpongeBob be this happy-go-lucky guy, and then in the next episode, he's this passive-aggressive douchebag. In the end, what SpongeBob pays for it is also frustrating. This entire episode is frustrating, and nothing about it screams entertainment. So I guess that should probably answer why this one tops all the others. Honestly, I can't say that I saw the suicidal references in One Course Meal. I did see all of the other things, but I just didn't see the suicidal references the first time I viewed it. I had to see a review to do that. And honestly, although you could be swayed by a review, you probably shouldn't go off of somebody else's review unless you watched it and you saw it for yourself. This top smooth jazz of Bikini Bottom because Patrick was only in that part for a short but very frustrating moment. This tops Boating Buddies because I just don't care enough for SpongeBob and Squidward. This tops Pet Sitter Pat and A Pal for Gary because in those episodes it's blatant what he's doing. It's blatant that it's wrong, and the only person who doesn't see that is SpongeBob. Maybe if those episodes had extra characters like Larry the Lobster, Mrs. Puff, Sandy, or Mr. Krabs, and those select people were telling SpongeBob that Puffy or Patrick was a great being to be around Gary, maybe if they tried to make the situation seem neutral and that both parties are at fault, then yeah, that would be just as bad. And if you guys know me for anything, you guys know that I don't like blatant hypocrisy. So while you guys may have your least favorite, this is my least favorite. Let me know your least favorite episode of SpongeBob in the comments below. And before I go, are you interested in hearing about the Alpha J Show schedule? I have the dates, I have the topics, and the times I take requests all on my DeviantArt page. I would highly recommend you guys check it out. That way, if you don't want to waste your request on something that I'm inevitably going to be reviewing anyway, you can make an informed decision. And I'm all about you guys being informed in the way that you decide things and on the way that you view episodes. And see me next time where I review a series that I said I wasn't going to review after the third one, and then I reviewed it 2 more times, and one of those times I got a strike on it, and I just... At least it has the Angry Beavers on it. Anyways, I hope your time was well spent, and Alpha out. Welcome everyone to the Alpha J Show. I'm your host, the Alpha J, and this is my discussion on Very Odd Parents. This is just some extra thoughts that I had. Extra thoughts? You already did this for 35 minutes, but nope. There is so much more that I haven't talked about yet. I told you guys I trimmed it down, but here's the things that I haven't been able to discuss in the show, in the episode review that I did, that I'm going to discuss now. The first point that I wanted to discuss was